Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering woke writers panic as veteran writers now get all the new writing jobs. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from The Hollywood Reporter, I'm scared. Why it's a brutal time to be a TV writer. Quote, there are so few shows that are still being greenlit. So few new pilots that are being ordered, and fewer spots in writers' rooms. The staffing positions available are going to more seasoned writers, and the pilots that are being purchased are being bought from proven writers. So if you're a new writer in Hollywood, and you just want to make it, and you've got stories to tell from your own truth and your own lived experience, but you aren't actually a proven writer, you aren't somebody that produces work that studios know will be quality work, that will be able to be turned into good content, because it's not just buying scripts. After you buy the scripts, you need to spend millions of more dollars turning that written material into valuable entertainment content, TV shows, movies, whatever it is. It never made sense for Hollywood to try to focus on new voices or different voices. If they have experienced people that make valuable material for them, why would they not just use that material? Because they had an ideological agenda. They were pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion. As much as they would still love to push that, it's getting almost impossible for them to do it because every studio is doing layoffs. Every studio is cutting back on production. And as we've covered before, data confirms no one's actually watching hundreds of woke streaming shows. If no one's watching those shows, they can't continue to produce them. And it goes all the way back to the writers. If writers know what they're doing, they'll produce good work. Not every show will be a hit, but at least no show will be an embarrassment. From The Hollywood Reporter, I'm scared why it's a brutal time to be a TV writer. The end of peak TV has ushered in an era of contraction with fewer buyers and fierce competition for the few shows that are staffing. People are in total survival mode. And personally, I feel for people that work hard and they're trying to make it in a creative business. Doesn't matter what anybody looks like. Everybody deserves an opportunity. The problem is, this is a really competitive field. It's not the kind of field like not everybody goes and gets a steady job because they want to work in a boring insurance office or become a salesman or something like that. Nothing wrong with those jobs, but kids don't dream of being something like that usually. Usually those are fallback jobs that people get because they've got a family to support, because they need to pay the bills consistently. So if you want to be a writer, if you really want to be in Hollywood, creating stories that are going to impact the culture, potentially for generations, that is if anyone actually watches your shows, that's a really elite opportunity. It's not available to everyone. Yes, in the last few years, many jobs were given to people that probably wouldn't otherwise have gotten them if not for the combination of pushing DEI and studios wanting to produce so much original streaming content. But as both of those things are aggressively cut back, these writers are in a lot of trouble. Emily Cheever's career was just getting started. The 36-year-old began her TV writing career in 2020 as a writer's production assistant and script coordinator for Legends of Tomorrow before getting hired as a staff writer for ABC's The Company You Keep. After a drama series that was a follow-up to This Is Us was canceled following a single season shortly after the Writers Guild of America strike began last May, Cheever had no job to return to when it ended in September. Like scores of other writers of all levels and backgrounds, she doesn't know when or where her next paycheck will come from. Quote, people are scared. I'm trying to get back to bartending, she says. A lot of people are wondering what other jobs they can do. I'm close to my old showrunners, and they're supportive of me, but they're looking for jobs. Showrunners are like the on-site producers. She may know a lot of showrunners, but it doesn't help if none of them have jobs. If they don't have a job, they can't give her a job. Across the TV landscape, buying has cooled dramatically, and many writers now find themselves in situations like Cheever, with opportunities shrinking as the industry shifts from peak TV to an era of contraction and austerity. A wave of downsizing that kicked off last year when the priorities of Wall Street changed from a focus on subscriber growth to profitability. As streamers like Netflix and Max right-size their slates, the broadcast pipelines for Peacock, Hulu, and Paramount Plus are drying up. A decade ago, Broadcasters collectively ordered as many as 98 pilots. Today, that number can be counted on one hand. A writer who sells a pilot could live off that money usually for a year of their life. So if studios want to give opportunities to new writers and buy their pilot, that can really set up a writer's career. They may not even make the show, but at least you give somebody a year's worth of income. They're not doing that anymore. Pilot episodes are a long-standing tradition in television. They're usually the first episode of a series introducing you to its world and characters. In fact, cable networks have often used the word pilot as the title of a TV show's first episode. Quote, there are so few shows that are still being greenlit, so few new pilots that are being ordered, and fewer spots in writers' rooms, says Shannon Corbeil, a finalist for the Disney TV Writing Fellowship that was put on hold during the WGA strike. The staffing positions available are going to more seasoned writers, and the pilots that are being purchased are being bought from proven writers. One of the great things if you're a mid-level executive is to depend on the work of people who have a reputation for producing commercial work. This way, they're not taking a chance when they hire somebody new. If the money they spend doesn't wind up being productive, if a show doesn't get made, or a show does get made and it's a failure, it looks a little bit less silly when you hire someone that has a good reputation. That's the way it's worked in Hollywood in the past. And now they're going back to that. Brandon K. Hines, that's this guy, spent more than a decade working in support staff jobs and is a script coordinator on Comedy Central's Aquafina is Nora from Queens and Amazon's Harlem. He was staffed as a writer for the first time on Showtime's Fellow Travelers. Hines was homeless and had been bouncing between camping, couch surfing with friends, and the occasional Airbnb before he turned to driving for DoorDash and Grubhub after his 16-week writing job on the Showtime limited series concluded before the strikes began. A potential writing job on a Weeds revival he lined up before the strike evaporated during the work stoppage, as Showtime dropped plans for the series, sources say. Quote, you need multiple gigs a year to make a livable wage, Hines says, noting that competition for lower-level writing jobs has intensified, as mid-level scribes and showrunners are increasingly putting themselves up for the few shows that are currently staffing. Quote, it's the craziest time to be a working writer in Hollywood. You can work on a semi-hit show, but still can't afford to make a living wage. It's pretty intense. It's not the lack of pilots that is affecting the challenging landscape that writers have found in the industry since the strike concluded in September. The overall volume of US-produced live-action scripted TV series tumbled 14% last year, from a high of 600 in 2022 to 516 in 2023. FX CEO John Landgraf, who coined the term peak TV, told Hollywood Reporter in February that the downturn started well before the WGA strike last May. Quote, there was a certain amount of inefficiency that was just about a whole bunch of companies entering a space where they had no prior experience. And you can't blame anybody but inexperience for that. Landgraf says of the billions of dollars rival streamers spent on programming in a bid to compete with Netflix. Since then, television reporters have been transformed into show Grim Reapers, announcing waves of cancellations and unrenewals, series that were canceled after they had originally been renewed by networks, including Uncoupled, Pitch Perfect Bumper in Berlin, and A League of Their Own. The Entertainment Community Fund, which provides assistance in the form of funds, workshops, and trainings for those who work in the film and TV industries, has already distributed more than $3.25 million to 1,600 people from January 1st through March 22nd, literally just handing out cash to writers out of work. That's on top of the $18.8 million the ECF handed out in 2023 during the dual work stoppage to 8,500 people, 600 of which were writers. Keith McNutt, executive director of the ECF, says the group has received requests for financial assistance from writers of all experience levels and cultural backgrounds since the strikes concluded. The ECF, he says, is dispersing between $200,000 to $300,000 a week. Quote, we're still doing 3 times the amount of assistance per week as before the pandemic. The WGA, which monitors employment levels among its members, declined to comment for this story other than to say the union required some time for a clear post-strike picture to occur. The strike really disrupted the studio's buying of new content. They didn't really miss that much when they weren't able to buy shows. That was really bad for people who are writers and people who are talent who are trying to get work on these shows. When the studios really saw, you know what, we actually don't need all this new content, that put a lot of these people out of jobs. Quote, it's erratic. The market has settled into something different with only 5 or 6 buyers left, said one veteran executive turned studio chief of the new TV landscape. It has been reshaped with fewer rooms, that means writing rooms, and rooms that are smaller with fewer jobs. Though the WGA wants some room size protections in its new minimum basic agreement, big writers' rooms with a dozen or more writers, once commonplace, are increasingly hard to find. Quote, there are thousands of people going up for one job and only 6 slots per show on a good day, says one veteran literary agent who pointed to Watson adding 3 writers after it was picked up for 13 episodes. The CBS drama started development more than a year ago with a mini room that featured only 6 writers. Quote, it doesn't feel like anyone gets a big writer's room unless you're an NCIS. The lack of the CW as a buyer for multi-season shows like Legends of Tomorrow and Superman and Lois, now in its abbreviated 4th and final season, is also contributing to the downturn in available gigs for writers. Since Nexstar took control of the CW from Warner Brothers and CBS Studios in October 2022, the network has canceled more than a dozen scripted originals and is no longer buying scripts from the traditional studio system the way it did under former CW CEO Mark Pedowitz. That left hundreds of writers out of work, as the CW previously served as a way for new writers to learn the ropes. As writers anxiously wait for a new wave of scripts deals to begin, many are turning to other jobs or consider leaving the industry altogether. Quote, I was interviewing for teaching jobs. I interviewed at a university and was close to leaving Hollywood forever, says an experienced showrunner. Nobody ever starts their career thinking that it will last forever. I never thought I'd be a writer for as long as I have, but I didn't expect to run into a brick wall. I thought it'd be a slow tapering, but this feels like a cataclysm. It was a very emotional thing I did when I applied for teaching jobs. I don't know if I'm ever going to forgive Hollywood for this. To go from the pandemic to strike to this, it feels like one war of attrition after another. For this showrunner, the recent salary gains secured in the new MBA are helpful but pale in comparison to the residuals that writers received from working on the type of long-running shows that boasted 24-episode seasons and were the bedrock of broadcast before streaming. Quote, writers at my stage a generation ago would have had much more money in the bank, he says. The fact that our earnings up and down the ranks have been diminished, and the fact that we can't rely on residuals to support us through the lean periods, people are in total survival mode. Even though we've made gains through the last 2 strikes, they don't add up to what it used to look like for veteran writers. McNutt says many writers have turned to the ECF's Career Center to help identify skills that can transfer elsewhere. Quote, we try to look at people's transferable skills and identify other kinds of work they can do to bring in money on the side. Being a writer is the dream and the passion and hopefully the primary wage source. But if that's not bringing in enough money, you can create a parallel career consulting with nonprofits or editing fundraising proposals. Quote, I'm scared. No one's making decisions, says another veteran showrunner who has been waiting since October to hear back on multiple pilots. You end up being not able to get paid because executives are not making decisions because they're afraid to make the wrong ones. This showrunner is now trying to figure out how to pay his mortgage after his overall deal expired and his projects sit in limbo. That's why executives are going back to the standard rule of hiring people who are veterans. They can't be hiring just any new person that's passionate about writing. They need people that are really money in the bank, or at least appear to be money in the bank when it comes to the value of their work. And that's tough on new people, but it's always been tough on new people. And he continues, that's where a lot of us are. Almost everyone I know who had a deal, that deal doesn't exist anymore. Agents, too, are feeling the pressure as clients come calling, looking for answers on when the downturn might end and when buying could perk up. But agents say they don't have the answers. Quote, it's just hard. There are a lot less jobs out there and more people available than ever. Another agent comments, there are no shows getting picked up, and the shows that are getting ordered have very tiny budgets, and showrunners are getting 600 submissions for staffing on a light day, when it used to be half of that. There are more writers who are unemployed than ever before. It's sad. So when will the turnaround begin? Hito Shimizu has worked steadily since breaking into the industry in 2010 with credits that include Being Human, Arrow, and showrunning Legends of Tomorrow. She was told by her reps that networks and streamers would start buying again after the calendar turned to 2024. Quote, it's been 3 months and no one can get anything sold, she says, as she juggles 5 different projects, all of them based on intellectual property, with the hopes that one will eventually find a buyer. For writers who are trying to pay their bills, it's really scary because we only make money if things sell. As a showrunner who is a queer woman of color and I can't get work, that's saying a lot. It's very frustrating. It's not enough to be a queer woman of color anymore to actually sell your work. It's got to actually be good work now. Quote, stay alive till 25 was the advice given to emerging writer Corbeil, the former finalist for the Disney TV Writing Fellowship, by her reps. Corbeil believes she's ready to be staffed on a show, but has been hearing, quote, it's really tough to get emerging writers jobs since the strike ended. In the meantime, she remains open to assistant jobs. She's pitching pilots to channels that are buying, like Hallmark and Lifetime. Selling a pilot can pay your bills for a year, she says. Quote, I think the current lull is temporary, says one studio chief. There are a lot of shows and outlets that need writers, and Netflix needs to keep feeding the beast. Many of the dozens of writers and executives The Hollywood Reporter polled are indeed optimistic that things will pick up again toward the end of the current 2023 to 2024 broadcast season, when networks will begin buying scripts to develop for the future. Networks are going to need shows, and streamers will need shows because original series are what brand them, according to a studio insider. Quote, I don't know that networks can go until 2025 without buying. They just won't be buying as much. Veteran writers who are proven quantities can sell their work. Not as much, it's still difficult for them, but it's becoming a veterans market again. Which is to say, if you're a new person, or like this other person just said, they're queer and they're a woman of color, but that's not enough anymore to get paying work because studios need performance. They don't just need TV shows. They need TV shows and movies that people want to actually watch. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.